When we're defining requirements or trying to conceptualize a system going into the future, we have to recognize that the system we're looking to implement may have requirements in it that are not possibilities today. But we have to be very, very careful that we don't try to define our requirements based only on what we know we can do today, because the systems we're going to implement will be used and implemented into the future, not just in a first release, but in subsequent releases. So we want to know how our requirements map against what could be possible in the future. And one of the ways to think about that is to quantify, if you will, three types of futures in the future you should be paying attention to. The first is anything that could happen in the future that's a possibility. So if you think it's possible something can be done in the future, then you'd be willing to gather requirements about that as you move forward. So what futures could happen? Where might your organization be in the future in terms of the systems that you're trying to work on? Within that range of possibility, there's probably a subset. Maybe it's a small subset, maybe it's a large subset. But of all the possible futures, certain futures are going to be more likely, to be more probable going into the futures. And so if your system needs can be met within your probable futures, that's probably a good sign as you work out your conceptualization of your system. And then within the probability of what could happen in the future, there will be some subset that is your preferred future. What are the requirements you're trying to satisfy and that your stakeholders need satisfied as you move into the future? So generally, you're always narrowing down as you see your way in, but within those constraints, you want to make your requirements and your conceptualization of your system as broad and flexible in the future and as possible going into the future, because what is preferable today might shift a little in the future within the realm of what is both probable and possible. So you want to keep these futures in mind and know that you're gathering your requirements as you see your way through. The catch is that the model is not necessarily as symmetric as what we're showing here. It could be that your preferable future crosses some of those boundaries, and that's where you as an engineer are going to have to make some trade-offs and some analysis and some prioritization of what you're looking to do as you go through. Because some of what is preferred will be possible but not probable, and some of what's preferred might not even be possible. So you've got to decide what you're willing to engineer and how you're going to conceptualize your system going forward. Within the realm of probable, there may be things that are outside probable but need to be made more preferable. So you're trying to move things around, define better practices in your organization. If your preferable implementation is seen as a short-term engineering challenge, perhaps shifting things from probable to preferable or making more things probable can be seen as your long-term change. So organizational changes, policy changes, ecosystem changes, economic changes, you can shift the realm of what is likely to happen in the future to more align over time with what is preferable, or reverse your engineering to try to make what's preferable more in line with what you see as what's probable in the future. And that's part of the trade-off and negotiation process that you go through with your stakeholders over time. Likewise, there may be things in your preferable scope, things you'd like to be able to do that aren't particularly probable today, but they are in fact possible. So there you want to conduct efforts to simply increase the probability that possible futures will actually happen so that you can take advantage of them. So things outside your organization or state of practice within your industry or best practices across, you do with benchmarking across lots of organizations, you're trying to go out and find what's possible out there to try to make it more probable within your environment through that organizational learning kind of construct that we often implement in terms of our systems environments. And then lastly, you may have things that are preferable for you to do in your systems that aren't even considered possible today. So not only not probable, they're not even considered possible. Many technology challenges face that. Things we can do today in technology were simply not possible as little as 5 or 10 or definitely 10 or 20, 30 years ago. So things over time become possible through research and development. So you may need to conduct some research and development of possible futures to try to accelerate the rate at which things that you'd like to be able to do, things that are preferable, become possible and therefore probable over time. So you as an engineer may be defining requirements in any of these categories as your baseline requirements for your system. And in the short term, you may have to make compromises for how things get implemented in the systems you're looking to actually do. But remember, the requirement may be for something that is impossible today. Don't resist writing down that requirement. We make an error as engineers when we don't write down the real requirements. We write down our own version of the requirement that we think is possible or probable for today. As things then in the future become more possible through R&D, we've never actually captured the requirement that says we would want that. So we may miss opportunities in the future going down the road. So be looking into the future. The systems you're going to engineer and design and build are going to exist out into that future where the possibilities of what could be done and the probabilities of what's likely to happen are going to change over time. So make sure you're engineering for that future, not some static view of the way the world works today.